Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Sankalp learning classes. Today we are discussing the how do organisms reproduction chapter. So that is the second part of this chapter. Already we have started this chapter. So we have discussed some questions that is related to 1 mark question and the uh, multiple choice question. So that all we have discussed in the last class. Today we are discussing the some short answer questions and some long answer questions. I hope all are ready to listen the class. Yes. Just for the confirmation, am I audible? Am I audible? Please anybody confirm. Okay. I hope my voice is audible. If you have any uh, disturbance, you can inform. Okay. So here already we have discussed in the last class. Just observe what we discussed in the last class. And in today's class, we are starting with the some short answer question and some long answer questions. Okay. Here, first question is, please note down the questions. What are the advantages of sexual reproduction over the asexual reproduction? What are the advantages? So here, the sexual reproduction have more advantages than the asexual reproduction. So what is the reason behind this? So this may be the 2 mark question. Write down the question. I will give time to write the question. What are the advantages of sexual reproduction over the asexual reproduction? Yes. Here, the sexual reproduction is the process of combining the two different genetic materials. Yes. So in the sexual reproduction, there is a involvement of the two parents, right? So here, resulting in offspring that share the similar traits with their parents but are genetically diverse. So they are genetically different from, slightly different from their parents. And in sexual reproduction, large number of species with the variation, more variation occurs in the sexual reproduction than the asexual reproduction. So this type of the reproduction, sexual reproduction, that will be helpful for the survival of the species. So this newly formed individual has characteristics of the two genetically different parents, and these variations are more viable in sexual reproduction. So there is a more chance of survival of these species. Okay, so does it ensures the survival of the species in the population. So like this you can write the answer. Note down the answer. What are the advantages of the sexual reproduction over the asexual reproduction? Okay. So here very important is it ensures the survival of species in a population. And so there is a more variation compared to the asexual reproduction. So that is also very important that you have to include in your answer. Okay. So if you want, you can note down the important points in this answer. Next question. In humans, how the surgical contraceptives methods can use to prevent the pregnancy. Here, in the human, some contraceptive methods are used. In that contraceptive methods, the surgical method is also one of the type, right, to prevent the pregnancy. So here, to prevent the pregnancy, first type is vas deferens. What is vas deferens? Vas deferens is blocked. If it is blocked, vas deferens, so that carries the sperms, right? So if vas deferens is blocked, then that is also called as vasectomy. There is a so this is also type of the surgical method of the contraceptive uh, method. And here, if the vas deferens is blocked, there is no chance of transferring the sperms to the female reproductive structure. If the fallopian tube is blocked in female, fallopian tube fallopian tube is blocked, then there is no chance of the egg that reaches the sperm. So these are the two surgical contraceptive methods. Okay, when the vas deferens is blocked, and other type is the fallopian tube is blocked. So these are the two surgical methods that are used for the prevent the pregnancy. Okay, so your answer should be like this: if the vas deferens in the male is blocked, sperm transfer will be prevented. Okay. Second point, if the fallopian tube in the female is blocked, fallopian tube. So in the female reproductive structure, just observe the fallopian tube. If the fallopian tube in the female is blocked, then also egg will not able to reach the uterus. I hope you know the diagram. So there is no the egg will not reach the uterus. So in both case there is no fertilization occurs. So these are the two surgical methods can be used to create the such blocks. Okay. Yes. So write these two methods. So if they ask the question like explain the surgical methods of the uh, contraceptive methods so that prevent the pregnancy. Okay. Note down the answer. I'll give few seconds to write the answer. If you want, you can note down. Okay. Next question. What does why does menstruation occur? Why does menstruation occur? So this will be 2-mark question. This question will be asked as a 2-mark question. So why does the menstruation cycle occurs? In a female reproductive system, if the egg does not get fertilized, the egg is released by the structure that is called as a ovary, right? If the ovary is not able to if the egg which is released by the ovary that is not able to fertilize, then the lining of the uterus, so every month the uterus, so that prepares for the attachment of the embryo like this. So just imagine this is the uterus. Okay. Here, the inner layer of the uterus, so that is preparing for the attachment of the embryo every month. Okay. So it will become spongy and get the blood supply. If the fertilization not occurs, so here egg is released by the ovary. So just imagine this is the ovary. So this egg, so that is not able to fertilize with the sperm. So there is no pregnancy occurs, and the lining of this uterus, so this inner layer of the uterus that break down slowly and comes in the form of mucus and blood. So that is called as a Menstruation. So that comes out in the form of blood and mucus from the vagina. So that is called as a menstruation cycle. So you can write the answer like this. If the egg does not get fertilized, then the lining of the uterus breaks down slowly and comes out in the form of blood and mucus from vagina. This is complete process of the menstruation. Note down the answer. Okay. So next question. Draw the diagram showing the germination of pollen on stigma. So this diagram is very, very important. Note down this question. Draw the diagram showing the germination of pollen on stigma. Very important question. So for this question, you should draw the diagram. I will show that diagram, which diagram we should practice. So note down the question first. Draw the diagram showing the germination of pollen on stigma. Okay. Yes. This diagram. Germination. So these are the pollen grains and this is the stigma. Germination of the pollen grains on stigma. So this diagram we should draw. So this will be the 3-mark question. Very important, one of the important question and important diagram. And label the parts. You should label these all parts like male germ cell. So this is the male germ cell, pollen grain, stigma, and pollen tube. Here, this bulged part, that is ovary, and this is the female germ cell. So these all labelings you should label. So that is very important. Not only drawing, just to drawing ಮಾಡಿ ಇಡೋದಲ್ಲ, you should label the parts. Okay, so that is also having the marks. Not only drawing the diagram, label the parts also. Remember, sometimes they will give the label this part like this, label the pollen grains or label the female germ cell, like this they will give. Sometimes they will not. So when they give, you the question, just draw the diagram. Okay, so at that time what you should do, you should draw the diagram and label the parts. Okay, next question. How are the modes of reproduction different in unicellular and multicellular organisms? Modes of reproduction, like in the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. So there are different types, right? Unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, how they are differ. Here unicellular organisms means they have the single cell and that is able to that is performing the all the activities, and multicellular organisms having the more than one or two cells or millions of cells, we can say that, right? Multicellular organisms. So let us see the difference between these modes of reproduction in the unicellular and multicellular organisms. Note ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರಾ? Yes. Next. Here, difference. Unicellular organisms, reproduction takes place by fission and budding, etc. mainly in unicellular organisms, we can observe this sexual type of the reproduction, that is fission and budding. In the multicellular organisms, reproduction takes place by regeneration, budding and vegetative propagation, spore formation and sexual reproduction. So you can observe various methods of reproduction in multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms, they have various methods of reproduction, but in unicellular organisms, for example, amoeba reproduce through what type of the sexual reproduction found in amoeba? That is the binary fission. Here, in multicellular organisms, reproduction takes place by regeneration, budding, vegetative propagation, spore formation, and sexual reproduction. So, any methods can be used for the reproduction in multicellular organisms. What are the advantages of vegetative propagation? So very important question. This is very important question. Advantages of the vegetative propagation. Note down this question. What are the advantages of the vegetative propagation? Yes. What are the advantages of vegetative propagation? Note down the question. Plants raised by vegetative propagation can bear flowers, fruits earlier than those who produce from the seeds. So this type of the vegetative propagation will be helpful for the production of the flowers and fruits earlier than the plants which are produced by the seeds. Okay, we can get the flowers and fruits earlier compared to the plants which are produced by the seeds. And second type advantages of the vegetative reproduction is, so in these methods, such methods also make possible of the propagation of plants such as banana, orange, rose and jasmine that have lost the capacity to produce the seeds. You know that rose or banana and some jasmine, they will not produce the seeds, right? They lost the capacity to produce the seeds, some of these plants. So here in these plants, how they reproduce? In banana, rose, so they will reproduce by the vegetative reproduction. Vegetative propagation you can call. So using this vegetative propagation method, they are reproducing. So that is possible because of the vegetative propagation. And another advantage of vegetative propagation is that plants produced are genetically similar enough to their parental plant. So that is parent plant to have all its characteristics. So there is a less variation in between the parents and the offsprings. Okay, new plant that is having the less variation compared to the parent plant. So these are the advantages of the vegetative propagation. ಇದನ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಲ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. So this question is repeated many times. Please note it down. Next question. Explain any one type of asexual reproduction. So there are different methods of asexual reproduction we have studied in this chapter, right? So fission, that is also type of the asexual reproduction. Then fragmentation, then regeneration, budding. So there are many methods: vegetative propagation, fragmentation, so and spore formation. So these all are the different types of the asexual reproduction. Here any one type is asked. Okay, any one type of the asexual reproduction you have to explain for the 2-mark question. Here I have taken the budding. Okay, you can explain any one of the asexual reproduction. Here in budding, organisms such as hydra, you can observe the budding in hydra and yeast use the regenerative cells for the reproduction. And in the process of budding, in hydra, bud develops as a outgrowth due to the repeated cell division at the tiny individual, small tiny individual formed in the specific site of the hydra. So that when that bud will get mature, after the maturation, that will detach from the parent body and that will become new individual, new independent individual. So that is about the budding. So that you can in the yeast also. So note down the answer. Organisms such as hydra use the regenerative cells. I hope you have studied this topic for reproduction in the process of budding. Okay. Then, so note down these points. Small outgrowth, that is due to the cell division, and small individual is formed, and that individual that will get detached from the parent body and that will develop into a new plant. Let's note down this. So you can note down the important points. Question is, explain any one type of the asexual reproduction. Any one type you can explain. Already I told there are many types of the asexual reproduction that is given in your syllabus. You can explain any one type. Next question. What are the different methods of contraception? What are the different methods of contraception? So what is the meaning of contraception? So which prevent the pregnancy, right? So the methods that are used to prevent the pregnancy. Very important question. What are the different methods of contraception? So here different types of the contraception methods are there. So that includes the condoms and contraceptive pills and some intrauterine devices. IUD means intrauterine devices and sterilization technique. Okay. Here first what you have to explain. Here barrier method. I have taken the topic as a barrier method. So in this method, so there is no fusion of the ovum and sperm takes place because some artificial barriers are used, that is nothing but the condom. Okay. So in this method, condoms are used as a barrier that will prevent the fusion of the sperm and ovum. And oral contraceptive means oral pills. So these oral pills, they change the hormonal balance in the female body. And here what you can say, these are the uh, these contain small doses of hormones in form of pills that prevent the release of the eggs and thus fertilization do not occur. So contraceptive methods means what? There is no pregnancy. There should be no pregnancy. Pregnancy should be prevented, right? So that is used by the different methods. First is the barrier, so that is the condom, and oral contraceptive, that is the pills, oral pills, and some implants or surgical methods. Implants means copper T. So I hope you know about the copper T. So that copper T is, so that is implanted inside the uterus, and that will be helpful for the, that is used for the uh, prevent the pregnancy. That is also one of the contraceptive method. So copper T. And surgical method. Surgical method, already you have studied that vas deferens is blocked or fallopian tube is blocked. So that is the surgical method. So all four types of contraceptive methods you have to explain. First type is the barrier method like condoms, and oral contraceptive means oral pills and copper T, and surgical methods like vas deferens or fallopian tube is blocked that prevent the fusion of the male and female gamete. You can note it very shortly. So short agi bekadre note ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Next question. What could be the reasons for adopting the contraceptive methods? What could be the reasons for adopting the contraceptive methods? Here, so why the couples are adopting the contraceptive methods? The reasons issues early. So sometimes the couples, they do not want the child. So in that case, they are adopting the contraceptive method. And here, the pregnancy will make major demands on the body and the mind of the woman. And if she is not ready for it, her health will be adversely affected. So in this case also, the couples, they use the contraceptive methods. When the woman is not ready for the pregnancy, her body and her mind should be ready for the pregnancy. If she is not ready, they use the contraceptive method. And there may be a pressure to avoiding the children from the government agencies. So these are the some reasons for adopting the contraceptive methods. Next question. How does the reproduction help in providing the stability to populations of species? How does reproduction, I repeat the question, how does reproduction help in providing stability to populations of species? Here, populations of organisms fill well-defined niches in the ecosystem. So, the consistency of DNA copying during the reproduction. So, there is a copying of the DNA, means the one DNA copy that will form two, like this. Same copy of the DNA will be formed during the reproduction is important for the maintenance of the body design features that allow the organism to use the particular niche. Okay. And so like this, the reproduction is therefore linked to the stability of the species. Okay. Next question. How does the embryo get nourishment inside the mother's body? How embryo is able to get the nourishment inside the mother's body? So in the mother body, okay, just imagine this is the uterus. After the fertilization, so fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. After the fertilization, the lining of the uterus thickens and rich supplied with the blood to nourish the growing embryo. The uterus will, that is getting ready for the attachment of the embryo, and this uterus, walls of the uterus, that will become thickened, and that is getting the more blood supply for the growing embryo. And the embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood with the help of special tissue called placenta. The placenta that provide the nutrition from the mother's blood to the embryo. The embryo which is present inside the mother's body, that is getting the nutrients from the mother's blood. But how? By using the through the placenta. Very important structure, placenta. And this placenta is embedded in the uterine wall. Placenta contains villi, the embryo side of the tissue, and blood spaces on the mother side surrounding the villi. And it provides the large surface area from the mother to the embryo, and waste products from the embryo to the mother, that is also removed by the placenta that is providing the nutrients also, and that is helping for the embryo to remove the waste product. So in this way, the embryo is the embryo will develop inside the mother's body. So that will get the nourishment from the mother's body. There is a, you should include that placenta that is present inside the that is a structure present inside the mother's body, that will helpful for the uh, transfer of the nutrients and removal of the waste. So like this, that is helping the embryo. Next question. Read the question properly. If a woman is using the copper tea, will it helpful for protecting her from sexually transmitted disease? Just imagine copper tea, that is intrauterine device, means that is kept in the uterus. This copper tea is, that is implanted in the uterus, and that prevent the entry of the sperms, to the fallopian tube, and that prevent the pregnancy. Okay, but here what is the question? If a woman is using the copper tea, will it helpful for protecting her from sexually transmitted disease? No. Copper tea does not, so that is not helping to prevent the sexually transmitted disease, because it prevents the sperm entry to the fallopian tube, because it phagocytes the sperms here, that prevent the pregnancy, but not from the sexually transmitted disease. So how you can write the answer? Just read this. Copper tea is inserted in female body to react with the semen entering with the egg in uterus. Copper ions prevent the pregnancy by inhibiting the movement of the sperm. So the copper tea that releases the copper ions and that inhibit the movement of the sperm, but it do not stop the entrance of the fluids inside the female body. Hence, it will not protect the women from sexually transmitted disease. It prevents the sperm entry, but it does not prevent the transmission of the sexually transmitted disease. This will be the applied question. This type of questions will be asked in your exam. Next question. Here, how does uterus prepare to receive the fertilized egg in woman? Second question, what happens if egg does not fertilize? Explain. So this will be 4 mark, 3 mark or 4 mark question. Okay. How you should write the answer? First one, take this one. How does uterus prepare to receive the fertilized egg in woman? How that uterus that is getting prepared to receive the fertilized egg. Okay. Write this question. The uterus prepares every month to receive and nurture the embryo. How it prepares? The lining becomes thick and spongy. Very important. You should include this point. The lining becomes thick and spongy and it has rich supply of blood to nourish the embryo. So this is very important point. The lining becomes thick and spongy. The wall of the uterus, the inner wall of the uterus, that will become thick and spongy and it has rich supply of blood to nourish the embryo. Your answer should be like this. Next question. What happens if the egg does not fertilize? Explain. If the egg that does not get fertilized, if it fertilized, it is implanted inside the walls of the uterus and that will develop into a embryo, new organism, right? But what happens if there is no fertilization? Here, if the egg is not fertilized, it lives about 1 day. The lining of the uterus slowly breaks and come out through the vagina as a blood and mucus. This cyclic process occurring every month is called as a menstruation. Every month from the ovary, one egg will be released. So if that egg that is not able to fertilize, so then the walls of the uterus that will break down and release in the form of mucus and blood, and that is called as a menstruation. What happens if the egg does not get fertilized? Then the menstruation cycle occurs. This should be your answer. So this is for the first question and this is for the second question. I hope this answer is completed. Next one. Again, same question. How does menstruation occur? How does menstruation occur? B. How the process of budding in hydra is different from the bryophyllum. Okay, first we solve this question. See here, how does menstruation cycle occurs? The lining of the uterus slowly breaks down and come out through the vagina as a blood and mucus. So this cyclic process occurring every month is called as menstruation. Okay. So this will be your answer. Next question. How does the birds in hydra that is different from the birds in bryophyllum live? Right. In hydra, birds are at a specific budding zone, while in bryophyllum, birds arise from on the leaves. Just imagine in the bryophyllum leaf, the birds they will arise from each notches of the leaves like this. Okay. and it is more in number compared to the birds in hydra. The birds in bryophyllum leaf is more. Okay, and in the hydra it is less, but in hydra the budding takes place in the particular place, but in leaves, at the notches of the leaves like this, here the buds are located. Write down the answer. Okay, next question. Explain the development of fertilized egg into a fetus in woman. B. In humans, how the surgical contraceptive methods can be used to prevent the pregnancy. Explain the development of fertilized egg. How the development of the fertilized egg takes place inside the woman body. So, dear students, please note down this question was asked in the different previous year question paper. Very important this. How does the fertilized egg that will develop into embryo, and in humans how the surgical contraceptive methods that are used for the contraceptive that are used to prevent the pregnancy. Here the uterus prepares every month to receive and nurture the embryo. The lining becomes thick. The lining of the uterus, okay, the lining of the uterus become thick and spongy, and it has rich supply of the blood nourish the embryo, and the placenta is the disc like special tissue embedded in the uterine wall, and it connects the fetus to the mother. And here the placenta that provide the nutrition for the embryo, developing embryo from the mother's blood, and if the any waste materials are present, that is removed by the placenta. Okay, here the embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood. Placenta transport the glucose and oxygen from the mother to the embryo. If the embryo need glucose or oxygen, so that is transported through the from the mother to the embryo, and it also helpful for the remove the waste from the mother's blood, from embryo into the mother's blood. So like this the development of the and nourishment of the embryo takes place inside the mother's body. Yes, in B question B, surgical methods that are used as a contraceptive methods, right? Here surgical methods, when the vas difference is blocked to prevent the sperm transfer in female, fallopian tube is blocked. So both are the surgical methods. It is also called as vasectomy for your knowledge purpose. Vasectomy, and it is fallopian tube blocking is called as a tubectomy. Tubectomy. This wording is not given, but just I'm giving. Okay. Vasectomy and tubectomy. See here, explain the significant function of each structure in human male reproductive system, right? every structure in the human male reproductive system. You have to explain the function of each structure. Okay, note down this question. This question also asked in the previous year question paper. So, dear students, uh, if you are able to on your camera, you can on. Okay, because I can't hear your voice, so I can see your face, right? So not able to hear your voice because that is muted. Just on your camera, so then I can observe how you are doing, how you are listening my class, like that. Otherwise it will be blank. Next question. Here you should explain each and every structure in the male reproductive system. Testes. In this testes, germ cells, that means sperms are formed. Testes are located inside the scrotum because sperm formation requires the lower temperature than the body temperature, right? And testes also secrete. You should write the testes, write about the testes, okay? Testes also secrete the hormone testosterone and regulate the formation of the sperm and the changes that occurs in the puberty in males. So that is the function of the testes. First thing is, so that produces the germ cell sperms, and the formation of the sperm that requires the lower temperature, so it is located inside the scrotum, and it produces the testosterone hormone that regulates the formation of the sperms and also responsible for the changes that occur in the puberty in boys, or you can say males. And the male reproductive system that also include the vas deferens to deliver the sperm with the urethra coming from the urinary bladder. Thus, urethra forms a common passage for sperms and urine. So, this urethra, that is the common passage for the sperms and urine. Along the path was difference, and glands like prostate and seminal vesicles release the some fluid secretions. Just imagine, already you have completed the function of the testes, and the sperms produced, they are carried by the duct-like structure that is called as a vas deferens, and this vas deferens that receives the some secretions from the from the prostate gland and the seminal vesicle, and after that which reach the urethra, and that urethra, that is the common passage for the sperms and urine. Very important, urethra is the common passage for the sperms and urine, and these are mixed with sperms and form this semen, and it makes the sperms transport easier and provides the nutrition. The secretions from the seminal vesicle and prostate gland that provide the nutrition for the sperms and it will be helpful for the transport of the sperm easier. And the sperm consists of genetic material and long tail that helps to move towards the female germ cell, that is the egg. Okay, like this, you should explain the every part of the male reproductive system. So, as per how it is given in your NCERT notebook. Okay, you can include the points, other important points also. Like this, you should write the answer. Next question. Explain the structure and important role of placenta during the pregnancy period of women. What is the function, structure, and important role? What it means function, important role means you can write the function. What functions it perform during the pregnancy of the woman. This question also asked in the previous year question paper. Very important. Note it down. After that, I will explain the answer. The embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood, and transport of glucose and oxygen from the mother to the embryo, that is by the placenta. Transport of the glucose and oxygen from the mother to the embryo, and removes the waste from the embryo into the mother's blood. So that is also function of the placenta, which removes the waste from the embryo into mother's blood. And after this, so the development of the child takes place inside the mother's body, and up to 9 months this process will continue. These three functions you have to explain. Transport of glucose and oxygen and remove the waste materials. Very important points. Very important points. Next question. How will an organism be benefited if it reproduces through spores? We can observe some asexual type of the reproduction takes place in organism through the spores. So in which organism you observe the production of the spores? That is at the, in which organism? Rhizopus. Here, what are the advantages of production of these spores? Huge numbers of spores are formed at a time. Inside the sporangia, you have observed the structure, sporangia. This is the sporangia. Inside the sporangia, number of spores are formed. Huge number, you can call. Huge number of spores are formed, and distribution of spores are very easy by air and fall of place to avoid the competition at one place. And these spores, they are carried by the air and they germinate when the suitable environment is present, but this provides the more space and less competition for the other spores. Okay, here number of spores are produced, but they are transmitted by the air to the another place to avoid, so that will be helpful for the avoid the competition. Next one, what are the advantages of this? Spores can store the genetic information for very long time, as they are covered by thick walls, to prevent the dehydration and other unfavorable condition for new one's development. That spore that is covered by thick wall. Okay. So that is helpful for the survival in the unfavorable condition. Next question. How is the process of pollination is different from fertilization? How pollination is different from the fertilization? Yes, what is the answer for this? Here, pollination, that is the transfer of the pollen grains to the stigma of a pistil, term as a pollination. You know that transfer of the pollen grains to the stigma of the flower, that is called as a pollination. Fertilization. What is the meaning of fertilization? Fusion of male and female germ cells. That is called as a fertilization. Fusion of the sperms and ovum. That is called as a fertilization. Pollinating agents like insects, wind and water assist the process. Pollination process that will be assessed by the insects. The insects, they carry the pollen grains from one flower to another flower. Here, fertilization. Pollen tube carries the male gametes to the female gametes in plants. In case of plants, through the pollen tube. I hope you have observed the pollen tube. Through the pollen tube, the male gamete transports. In animals, sperm swim through the body fluids in reproductive tract of female to reach the egg. Fertilization in plants that takes place by the pollen tube that carries the male gametes and that fuses with the female gamete. In case of animals, the sperm, they will swim inside the female body to reach the egg. That is the difference between the pollination and the fertilization. Yes. The last question of this session. What are the changes seen in girls at the time of puberty? At the time of puberty, we can observe the changes in boys also and girls also, and some characters which are similar in boys and girls, and some characters are there different in girls and boys. So here, what are the changes we can observe here? They are called as secondary sexual characters. Okay. Here, breast size begins to increase with darkening of the skin of the nipples at the tip of the breast. And menstruation cycle start. During the puberty, in females, the menstruation cycle start, and here first point, the breast size begins to increase. And a thick hair starts growing in the genital area between the thighs and armpits. So this change that we can observe in boys also, not only girls. The thick hair starts growing in the genital area, that we can observe in the boys also. A pimple develop on face and widening of the hips occurs, and the skin frequently becomes oily. These all changes we can observe in the girls during the puberty. Okay. And one more question you can relate to this one. What are the changes that occur in the boys during the puberty? Okay. And what are the changes that can be seen in males and females during the puberty? That is also one of the important question. I hope this session is useful for you people. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the next session, or now also you can ask. So here we have completed the question answer discussion from the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce. I will start the next chapter in the next session. Be ready for that. So I will give 1 minute time to ask if you have any doubts. Okay, no doubts. Thank you. Thank you, dear students. We'll meet in the next session.